welcome, everyone. This is the Conscious Chicano. How's it going, everyone? Today is Conscious Chat number 30, and the topic is the Udo Aztecan family and Mexican and Chicano ancestry in the United States. Yeah, this is a good topic, especially for you brown folks out here living in the United States. A lot of times brown folks think they're immigrants, right? They think they're foreigners, right? That this isn't their land, right? This is what the colonizer has brainwashed everybody to think, when in fact the foreigners have been always the Europeans who came and invaded these lands. Anyways, welcome to my video. And if you just came in, if you on YouTube, um, go and read the details below. Um, I have links down there. One is a link to my Rumble channel, and I just have a lot of good new videos up. So go check it out. I'm exposing a lot of stuff out here. And also click on my Instagram accounts there and feel free to connect with me. Send me a message. If you need some resources, you want to dig deeper into this subject, let me know. Also, click on my Twitter account. If you don't have a Twitter account, go make one. I actually had a recent good what's called a Twitter Space chat. They have these little chats where you could go on there and you go and chat about a topic, and people listen and they join in the conversation. So I actually had a really good Twitter chat. And what you do is click on my Twitter account and scroll all the way down until you see the recent Twitter Space chat. And it's really good. It's like around 4 hours, and the first hour I talk about the subject, and then there's a guy there who's well versed on the subject too, and we just go back and forth talking about the topic, and it's a lot of good information, and definitely go check it out. Lots of gems in that discussion there. Anyways, definitely. And I'll be having more of those Twitter spaces in the future and more Rumble videos as well. So make sure to like and subscribe and make some positive comments on my videos on, Rumble and YouTube. Um, all right. So let's actually get into the topic, the Udo Aztecan family and Mexican and Chicano ancestry in the United States. Wow. So a lot of times, Mexicans, Chicanos, they're not that conscious, sometimes. There are some who are aware of that their ancestry is connected in throughout the Americas, prior to European borders, prior to artificial European borders. The fact is that we are indigenous people. We have indigenous ancestry. We have it in our genetics, our blood, our culture. Um, and we've been here for thousands of years, our ancestry, thousands of years before any European borders were established here, before any European invaders came. That means before any Anglos came, before any Spaniards came, we have indigenous ancestry, and we've been traveling back and forth for thousands of years, you know. So I was actually thinking the other day, is like, what would have happened if there wasn't any European borders here? I would think that there would be more acceptance of brown folks, traveling back and forth without any harassment, without any discrimination in some sense. And um, you know, and I mean, you go back to pre-colonization times. Yeah, there was that war. There was times where natives were territorial, and they, but they weren't, in a such. They weren't. Their attitudes were not as bad as the white supremacists in some sense, where the white supremacists want to kick you out and and call you a foreigner and discriminate against you and all that. There's times that people from different nations, different tribes, they um, sometimes they battled each other, but then they came to make peace with each other, and even at times some members of certain nations joined other nations, and it was a back and forth exchange, and sometimes tribes merged with each other, and formed a new tribe. That happens at times. Groups, if you actually study anthropology, that's what happens. Groups sometimes have common origins, and then they kind of break up into other groups, and they form their own groups, or sometimes they merge with other peoples, and then they go back and they merge with the original group. It's you know group formation, tribal formation, nations, um, human say human evolution has is more complex than we actually think of. We think of humans in the linear travel form, but the way I've seen it, my study of culture and anthropology is, and just even common sense. You see, even to this very day, like people migrate, travel. They end up reproducing with people near them. So it's just we have to get out of this tribalist thinking where we think that we're um, separate and distinct and unrelated. And I found a lot of Eurocentric scholars and sometimes Eurocentric anthropologists like to even claim that certain indigenous nations were distinct and separate and unrelated to people around them, which is nonsense. If you actually study a lot of cultures and everything, you'll find that there's a lot of relations, with the peoples around them, and sometimes most of the time, they have common origins, and we definitely see this evidence even amongst Mexicans and Chicanos, because we have native ancestral ties, and one of the evidence is called the Uto-Aztecan family of languages, and I actually, actually came across an article, and I kind of knew this already, but I just kind of had to, you know, reread, and sometimes it's been a while since you actually read into the subject and topic. But the article was very interesting, and it talks about it. The title was "Are you related to the Aztecs?" or what they call themselves, the Mexica, right? And it goes into the whole Uto-Aztecan possible what is it origins of like tracing as far as back as where the earliest origins of the Uto-Aztecan family originates, and it's very interesting, this whole subject. And the article presents says that wherever there's a language connection, there's definitely genetic connections as well, or lineage connections. So relations, human relations, ancestral relations. So so the article goes into how the Uto Aztecan family of languages. If you actually think of like, say, in Europe, you have sometimes you have what's called Indo-European languages, and you find that a lot of languages in in Europe are basically um, under this branch of what's called Indo-European origins. It's almost even similar to, say, Latin, the Latin language, and how they say that Spanish and Italian and Portuguese, a lot of those languages are all like have a common relation with the Latin language as well. So we also have this phenomenon occurring out here in the Americas, where you have what they call the Uto-Aztecan family of languages, and it comprises of a lot of native languages, and it traces from the United States to Mexico, to Central America as well. And you see this if you trace the Uto-Aztecan family languages, you'll find a lot of people are actually related, and they basically have ancestral connections and ties. And if you just think about it, wherever language travels, so do the people as well. You know, so we have evidence that in the article it states that out here in California, I live out here in California, and there's a lot of Uto-Aztecan um, nations out here. Who had languages, the spoke languages. They may have not been exactly the same, but there's a lot of commonality in their words and expressions and everything, and you find a lineage, you know, a lot of common ancestral language um, connections there. And the article highlights that it could be possible that the earliest origins of the Uto-Aztecan family language could be in California, uh, and it's with the Shoshone people, and that's what the article says there. It's interesting. I was like, wow, we Chicanos and Mexicans, we have connections with the native nations out here in the United States, and we may even descend from them as well. I know I definitely have ancestral ties here, but in general, I would think most Mexicans have descendants that come from the United States. And if you have indigenous ancestry, and most Mexicans do, most Chicanos do. Um, so interesting that the Shoshones, are they say that they may be the first ones, were who are the Uto-Aztecan um, language speakers. And another interesting fact out here in California, we have like in my you know my neighborhood, we have what's called the Tatavian tribe. Tatavian tribe, uh, and Tatavian tribe, and their main areas were the Santa Clarita Valley and the San Fernando Valley as well. Um, and I think possibly even they go as far as probably Ventura County or something like that. Um, but I know I actually live near live near the tribe, and they also are part of the Udo Aztecan family as well. Although they experienced a lot of colonialism at times, and genocide and everything when the Europeans came. Um, I'm not too sure if actually there are still people that still speak the language, but scholars have said that the language they spoke. I think they have evidence of it where they when they were doing, I guess, language, um, kind of like data on the language they spoke, and there's evidence that they definitely spoke a type of Udo Aztecian language. And we also have another tribe out here in Los Angeles. Um, they're mostly like in, was it like the whole, like kind of like Los Angeles, like down over there, because we have the San Fernando Valley out here, Santa Clarita. That's the Tataviam territory, and then when you go out further to Los Angeles, that's more the Tongva territory. Um, I think there's a debate on what they actually call themselves. I'm not too sure what the other one's, kids or something like that. Um, I just you you can actually, there's some people that actually really know a lot of the history of the Tongva people. Um, but in terms of the language they definitely spoke was Udo Aztecan. So interesting that we have people out here in Los Angeles, like LA County, Ventura County, Santa Clarita Valley, you know, speaking the Udo Aztecan languages. And I would think that in even most of like Southern California, a lot of the languages that natives spoke out here were possibly, most of them were like Udo Aztecan, and they actually trace that lineage, and you find it tracing, the Udo Aztecan family, not only from California, but you have even in New Mexico, like the other parts of the Southwest. New Mexico, they say the Hopi and the Zuni speak Udo Aztecan languages as well, and then even in Utah as well, there's tribes there, nations as well. Um, who else? There's just so many of them. I mean, there's so many states out here in the Southwest that the tribes spoke Udo Aztecan, you know, type languages. The Comanches did as well. Um, and so when we trace that, even when you go down, even, further down to say northern Mexico, you have many tribes, many indigenous people who spoke the Udo Aztecan languages. And I know for certain one of my one of my ancestries is of the Yaqui people, and we definitely, our language Yoeme is definitely Udo Aztecan, and I personally, have studied some Nahuatl. I'm not an expert in it. You gotta practice it all the time, but I'll definitely start practicing more. More in the future. But as I learned Nahuatl, and then I also was also studying some Yoeme too. And as I was studying Yoeme, and I knew some Nahuatl as well, um, I noticed there's a lot of similarities in the language. I was like, oh wow! And this was like, I know this is firsthand experience. What I noticed is like, wow, a lot of similarities between Nahuatl and Yoeme. And so the Yaquis, are, they have origins in what's called Sonora, Mexico, as well as Arizona as well. So that's interesting as well. So, Udo Aztecian lineages are all over North Mexico as well. You find it in Chihuahua and even amongst um, was it the Huichols, the Huichols, and I think their language is I think what is it called? Oh, it's been a while. I got so much to memorize, but I'm just saying like a lot of North Mexican nations out there. They definitely their um, their native languages were of the Udo Aztecian family lineage. Actually, Huichol, that's what it is. Huichol, and I think it's Caro or something. Was it Caro? Yeah, something like that. And yeah, they're definitely part of the Udo Aztecan family. And and Nahuatl too was like also in northern parts of Mexico as well, northwest. And Nahuatl is also part of the Udo Aztecan family languages, and it was actually one of the most widespread language in Mexico. Um, it was one of the most spoken language, throughout Mexico. It was known as like a language of trade. Um, you, in a sense, wanted to trade in Mexico, it would be an advantage if you knew Nahuatl. Although there's many other native languages all throughout Mexico as well. So, um, sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm not Aztec. I don't need to speak Nahuatl." But there was even people who were not Mexica who also spoke Nahuatl too, and its variations. So Nahuatl has even variations. Depends on the region you go to. There's different variations. Um, but yeah, it's just we have lineage, and they say that the Mexica, came from a place like Chico Mostoc, Aztlan, out of the caves, and it's definitely north of what you call Mexico City. And there's people who say that the origins. I've heard so many different takes on the whole Aztlan origins thing. I mean, some claim it was in Canada. I heard one person actually making that argument. Some say it was in the United States or what you call northern Mexico. And there's actually a Chicano professor that I used to have, Dr. Seatley. He actually sees the possibility of the Mexica coming from, I think was it's kind of like was it around the Four Corners area in the Southwest. Um, and he makes his case, and and so it's possible. It's definitely possible. Um, and but here's the thing: is like we want to kind of steer away from claiming that the Southwest is Aztlan, right? There's a lot of old school Chicanos who say, "Oh yeah, the whole Southwest is Aztlan," right? That argument kind of is not that strong in laying claims to ancestral ties to the Southwest, to the United States, and we can actually provide even more concrete evidence than just the Aztlan, um, legend. Um, And Aslan is not just a legendary place, but it could be it's like regarded as even like a historical place as well. You know, there's definitely the Mexica came from some caves, and it's possible that they came from definitely northern was northern of them, you know, up north of Mexico City, and and we go down the language trail. They definitely this came from the Udo Aztecian lineage, you know. So we can't just say that the Aztecs just came, like, say some people try to make the argument, oh, you guys, you know, the Mexicas came from only North Mexico. And that's not completely true because the Mexicas are descendants of the Udo Aztecian family. So they definitely came up from up north. And, you know, a lot of natives were traveling, right? You know, all the way from Alaska and downward. You would think that, right? But there's some resistance even amongst Native Americans. Like there's some prejudice sometimes too. Like I think some Native Americans have been colonized by the Anglo, you know, and some of them I found out are half Anglo, and so their attitudes a lot of times is that they don't want to consider Chicanos and Mexicans as native, and it could be ignorance on both sides because you got Mexicans sometimes calling themselves Latino, Hispanic, Mestizo, that they're not indigenous, and then you have native and or they some of them say they're Spaniards, you know, or they have some great grandfather who's a Spaniard, right? So they want to hold on to the Spaniard as much as they can and identify with that, even though most of their ancestry is brown indigenous people, right? So, but and then you have the the perspective where the Anglos kind of hear all this stuff and they go, "Oh, those are Spaniards, right?" They have these Spaniards, these corrupt colonizer Spaniards. What I notice is that the white Anglos will call out the Spaniards for their atrocity and genocide, but they won't call themselves out, you know. And so some of the Native Americans out here will adopt the Anglo mindset and at times be anti-Mexican, anti-Chicano, and they would also think of them, oh, those are Spaniards, right? Or we don't like Mexicans, right? And it's a bad history because the Spaniards used other Mexicans, like indigenous people in their army, to colonize certain tribes out in the United States, right? And the same thing occurred with the natives out here in the United States, where the Anglos recruited natives to make war with Mexicans as well. So there's a lot of divide and conquer there at times, and you know, and some of the Native Americans think that, oh, these Mexicans and Chicanos are coming over here and they want to take over our land, right? Or there's attitudes where, oh, they want everyone to become Aztec. They want everybody to speak Nahuatl, and that's not what I'm actually advocating. What I'm advocating is mutual respect, you know, harmony, peace, and knowing our relations, right? You know, having harmony and respect and uh, and realize acknowledging each other, right? Even as a Chicano here, um, my thinking is that you know we should be fighting for native restoration, right? You know, we should be supporting the native causes out here in the United States because they are our people as well. And even from me, my native side, you know, being of Yaqui and also Apache ancestry. I'm Chicano as well. Um, I see that these brown people here in the United States are there are brothers and sisters, you know. So we shouldn't like have this colonizer mindset where, oh, those are not our people. We should separate, you know, and have this tribalist mindset, you know. And this is what causes division. And this is what the European colonizer wants, you know. He wants us divided and at war with each other, right? Oh, you're my competition, right? That mindset right there. Where in fact the colonizer owns practically all the land, right? He stole all the land, committed genocide. He's making you go at war with each other, divide and conquer tactic, right? So us natives definitely, whether you're from Mexico, you're Mexican, Chicano, Central American. Um, I mentioned Central Americans because there's a lot of them out here in Los Angeles too. They travel, and they've been doing that for thousands of years too. We can't see Central Americans as foreigners either. There are people. It's the same people pretty much. Some little some little distinctions here and there, but even the Udo Aztecan language, it traveled from, the United States, the family ancestry to Mexico, northern Mexico, all the way to central Mexico, where the Mexicas actually were speaking Nahuatl, and even Central America as well. Central Americans speak Nahuatl. So, there's a lineage. There's a lineage. And we could think of that natives travel not only downward but upward too, back and forth, even maybe even horizontally. So we got to think about all the complexities of where these Uru Aztecan family lineages are. And just know that we are brothers and sisters, especially us natives out here, brown folks out here, Chicanos, Mexicans, Native American, right? Um, so that's some interesting insight. The Uru Aztecan family, and I'm into language preservation as well. So I definitely, even if even like in Mexican Spanish, right? I just realized that I remember back in the day when I was I was involved with the Mexica movement. Olin would say that there's even in Mexican Spanish, there's Nahuatl words there, you know. And if you guys don't know what Nahuatl is, it's a native language, like I just mentioned. It's part of the Uru Aztecan native family languages. And so a lot of the Mexican Spanish has Nahuatl words in there. People think that, oh, it's all like that's why the Spanish in Mexico, it changed, and you'll see that it's not exactly like the Spanish from Spain, you know. So you can even go as far as that and saying that the Spanish of Mexico is also linked to the Uro Aztecan family as well, even though it may have some colonizer language, right? But there's some Nahuatl words within the Spanish. So even the Mexican Spanish has some lineage with the Uru Aztecan family of languages. Nobody even thought about that. I just thought about that. I was like, wow. So Mexicans who speak Spanish even have Uru Aztecan family lineage, So you can imagine that. Um, So yeah, so for you guys, you Chicanos, Mexicans, you got to stop thinking of yourself as foreigners, as immigrants. Your ancestries you have all throughout these. You have ancestry here in the Americas. You have it in the United States. We come from people from the north, right? If we descend like if you're from Mexico, and or we got so many lineages out here. That's why I talk about it. Like I have lineage with the Apaches and the Yaquis, the Chicanos as well, and if you even trace it down the line, I mean, they even say that the Toltecs and the Yaquis are ancestors. They're related to each other, and and the Toltecs were actually really they were like popular in even in Mesoamerican studies, and that's just me. Like, there's so many other people. I've met Chicanos who were Apaches as well, you know, and there's a lot of us even out here in Los Angeles. You got a lot of people who are Chicanos who have Apache ancestry, who are Yaquis as well. I mean, out here where I grew up, in Pacoima, there was a tribe there as well, and and also it's like you had like popular people like Richie Valens, right? He was Yaqui as well. So you'll be surprised out here. A lot of us Chicanos have native ancestry, and we have this connection, to this land. We're not foreigners, and just look up the history of the Udo Aztecan family. You know, yesterday I was actually listening to a Comanche brother talking about his Comanche language, and how he was saying it's Udo Aztecan, and you hear him talk, and I'm like, oh shoot, that just sounds like even like similar to Nahuatl. You listen to the Yaquis and the Yoem speaking Yoeme and all that. It's very similar. And you see a lot of this happening, so it's very interesting. It's good to know all this stuff, especially as a Chicano. We're told all our lives that we don't belong here, right? That we're foreigners. You know, Even as a Chicano, I get a lot of times, oh, where are you from? What part of Mexico? No, I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, I have ancestry in Mexico and the United States before any of this was called United States or Mexico. So it's like people have this mindset that you're like, oh, yet you're a foreigner, right? We've always been here, our ancestry. So definitely, you Chicanos, Mexicans out here, you start digging into the Udo Aztecan family lineages, and you'll find out a lot of information, a lot of ancestral relations and ties. And I'm just dealing with the Udo Aztecan lineages, right? There's more than just the language, though. But I'm not going to go into all that today. But definitely, even I actually listened to there was a it was so I actually am part of what's called the Good Medicine Way on Mondays, which is a native Christian ministry. And there was a native Christian who actually was into what's called native restoration. So in the Good Medicine Way, what we believe is like uh, like Christians, especially native Christians, are to bring back what's called restoration, uh, shalom, harmony, and part of the Christian, you know, native Christian, is to bring back restoration. Even Christians in general, if you're a Christian, you should be, your goal is to restore. That's what it is, to heal, right? And one of the factors of restoration and healing is to support native restoration, revitalization, in some sense, where, one of the goals is to restore native languages, get it, revive it in some sense, and keep it intact and keep it going. And so this native brother who was on the Good Medicine Way, he's Christian, and he's into saying, he's promoting that native Christians to go and learn their native language, start practicing it, start learning it little by little, you know. And even that's like a form of resistance, a form of decolonization, and and just connect yourself, connect yourself with a indigenous community, look into your indigenous lineages and find out, and go learn the language of your people, and I'm highly big on, native languages and native restoration. um, and like I said, I've been involved in native language revitalization, especially with the Nahuatl language. I've taken classes on Nahuatl. That's a form of resistance. That's a form of decolonization. You're getting to your ancestral roots. And you're learning. I took classes with a professor at CSUN named Fermin Herrera. He taught classical Nahuatl. And I was learning, the how to write Nahuatl and speak it. Although you got to keep practicing it, because if you don't practice the language, like, you end up forgetting. So I have to keep going back, and I'm definitely going to go back and start learning more Nahuatl. um, and as well as Yoeme too, that my ancestral Yaqui people as well. And like I said, if you just how's it going? Casual conversation. If you just came in, I'm talking about the Uto Aztecan family languages, and the Uto Aztecan family language is a bunch of languages that are all related, and they trace it from California throughout the Southwest to Mexico, and even like parts of Central America. And uh, and you'll find out, like they say, that one of the earliest possible origins of the Uto Aztecan family language is with the Shoshone people of California. And you'll find, even where I live in the San Fernando Valley, the Tataviam tribe, they spoke Uto Aztecan language. The Tongvas of Los Angeles, they spoke Uto Aztecan languages. And even in other parts of the Southwest, you have in New Mexico, the Hopis, the Zunis spoke Uto Aztecan language languages as well. Even in Utah, I think they're called the Uti tribe as well. That's where I think they get the Uto Aztecan from. They have that term for that. And there's other parts of the Southwest, that have this Uto Aztecan family lineage, and they trace it all the way in Mexico too. Like a lot of northern peoples in Chihuahua, Sonora, Zacatecas, um, you know, Jalisco, um, people out there, they spoke Uto Aztecan languages as well. And for example, my people, the Yaquis, were in Sonora originally, and even parts of Arizona as well. And so, before any European borders, we were traveling back and forth, and we had lineages, connections, relations, right? We all descended. Just think about it. As people travel, they end up merging with other peoples, other nations. They end up reproducing with each other, speaking their language, being influenced by their languages. Human evolution is very complex. It's not just linear, you know. So we definitely, Chicanos, Mexicans, we have ancestral ties to the United States, and we descend from the people, the native peoples of the United States as well. And they say trace the language, and that's where you find the ancestry, right? So the Uto Aztecians, they come from California throughout the Southwest, and you find it in northern Mexico and traveling all the way down to Mexico City, even amongst the Mexica speaking Nahuatl, even in Central America as well. I mean, and it's not just the Mexica Aztecs that spoke Nahuatl; it was other tribes, other nations as well. And actually, Nahuatl was one of the biggest languages of trade in Mexico. And there's many other native languages in Mexico as well, but Nahuatl was one of the biggest ones. And we have Nahuatl speakers to this very day. And you know, there's even a community that I've been involved with out here in Los Angeles where they speak Nahuatl. If you actually go to a website called speaknahuatl I think it's .com or something like that, and there's Nahuatl speakers there that teach Nahuatl, and they're into native revitalization of languages and preservation, and so it's important to keep that going and keep it alive. And we also have to think that what I've actually discovered that even the Mexican Spanish, when I was involved in the Mexica movement, Olin mentioned that even the Mexican Spanish has a lot of Nahuatl words. So Mexicans are all actually speaking native languages and they don't even know. They think, oh, their Spanish from Spain is the same. No, it's different. If you hear the Spanish from Spain is different from the Spanish even of Mexico, and it's because there's many Nahuatl words in Mexican Spanish, and so I make the case that even the Mexican Spanish has Uru Aztecan family lineage as well. So many Mexicans are Uru Aztecan family people as well, and so there's connections there, and we definitely have lineage to all that goes all the way up north of Mexico. Some make the case all the way up to Oregon. So definitely, we're pretty much the same people. The same, we just traveled. We traveled from north to south. We're the same brown people. And we have that lineage. So don't think of yourself as a first generation immigrant or second generation or third or that you're a foreigner. That's all been a lie and indoctrination that the Europeans made us think that we're foreigners to this land, that we don't belong here. That's just a bunch of nonsense. We actually have family language lineage that traces all the way up over here. So we've been traveling thousands of years. So it's important for Mexicans and Chicanos look into the history of the Uru Aztecan family, and that's your ancestral ties right there. That's your lineage, right? Those are your relations right there. You know, so very interesting insight to know about this. Um, Good information. If you ever get a chance, um, definitely look into learning indigenous languages, especially your ancestral indigenous language. If you're having trouble finding out what your ancestry is, there's many ways. Just talk to your family. um, do a lot of investigation, right? uh, find out where they came from, right? Their origins, right? um, some people do a lot of this ancestry type stuff, websites, and they do this genetic stuff and everything, um, or they do the whole oral tradition thing. They just talk to their family members and find out, like, okay, you find out, you start talking to them, talk to the elders, you know, definitely, and you'll find out, you'll discover information. It's like, where your connections are, your ancestry. And once you find out, your relations and everything, your ancestry, you have a right to go and learn that language. And so, like my goal is to eventually, start, working more on, Yoeme, which is the Yaqui Uru Aztecan language as well, very similar to Nahuatl. And me as a Chicano, I definitely, you know, I have a right to even learn Nahuatl as well. Like even the Yaquis are related to the Toltecs. I mean, people don't even know that, right? But there's just a lot of stuff like that. It's like a lot of Chicanos don't even know this. A lot of Mexicans. But even if you're speaking Spanish, Mexicans are speaking some Udo Aztecan, words, right? It's part of their language. So, you have ancestral ties to this land, right? Your people have been here even prior to colonization for thousands of years, and you've been traveling back and forth. So, this is your inheritance. Be proud of it, dig into it, find out about it, and preserve it, right? Preserve it, revitalize it, keep it going. Go teach your children, your family, you know, um, about, teach them these languages, even, or both, all of you can learn at the same time, Um, so definitely. Anyways, I actually even I have like lots of books on Nahuatl and even on Yoeme, the Yaqui language, and I even have like a dictionary that the professor Fermin Herrera, he actually wrote. He's a professor from CSUN. He teaches classical Nahuatl. I have his dictionary, and I have his workbooks too that he gave in class, and also the people at speaknahuatl.com, I think this guy named Jan, and he's pretty good, and he has even resources and books on that too. So I have his books as well, and I participated in some of their community workshops, and and they teach people language out here, Nahuatl language, and out here in Los Angeles. Get involved if you're out here in Los Angeles. Definitely connect with that group and start practicing some Nahuatl. And even don't get frustrated. Sometimes we think, oh, I will never learn how to speak Nahuatl or something like that, or some native language. Just keep trying. Like this one native brother said that he says, just take a word and just like one word at a time, and just really like think about that word. I even go as far as like, okay, maybe even like if you want to memorize a word, use different memorization techniques. um, you know us- I remember working on how to memorize better is like using picturing a word and associating with some image or something, or some story or something like that, and keep practicing it, and learn how to pronounce it, like even start off with like Mexican, right? Like the X in Nahuatl is pronounced as sh. So think of like when you see like Mexico, or instead of Mexico or Mexico, you can kind of convert it to the Nahuatl origins and call it Mexica, Mexica. You pronounce the X with a SH. Um, and there's just a lot of different ways to pronounce Nahuatl, you know, even when you say Nahuatl, like Nahuatl, like you're saying the TL with a T, Now what? Now what? So yeah, it's just so much to actually. I haven't actually practiced it in a while, so I need to actually refreshen and dive more deeper into it. But yeah, just do it. Just go and check it out. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, whatever languages that your ancestors spoke, definitely look into that lineage and start working on it. Because the problem out here is I actually brought this whole issue up, at the Good Medicine Way with that brother who was talking about native restoration and revitalization, even as the goal for native Christians, is to bring back, restore, and I brought up the issue of saying, oh, the reason why native languages are not, some of them are becoming extinct or hardly anybody speaks them is because we have these colonizer institutions out here that are enforcing European languages. So they make it a requirement to know English, right, out here in the United States. They make it a requirement in Mexico to know Spanish, right? And so, if we can actually reverse that and institutionalize, in some sense, native languages and make it a requirement to learn a native language, say in high school, to graduate, to incorporate it in part of the ethnic studies curriculum, even for college, um, Chicano studies, you know, different things like that. We gotta institutionalize it. I even made it the case where a lot of the European languages are required in order to do business. You know, you know, it's just even like trade and this and that. They say, oh, you gotta learn English, Spanish, or Chinese in order to have like good global business, right? And that's also a problem out here is because we have these European languages dominating because they've been institutionalized. So, in a sense, I believe that we need to offer more courses in native languages and make it a requirement, even like, say, in business, to trade, to do business, and all that. This is how you try to restore native languages and keep them alive and to keep them going where people are, in a sense, they have to know that language in order to communicate, in order to buy and sell and different things like that. So I think this is part should be part of the revitalization and restoration of native languages, and we got to institutionalize a lot of these native languages to keep them alive and keep them going and to even expand upon them as well. So this is a form of decolonization. Go learn a native language, and this is the resistance, right? Definitely. Uh, so I guess I'll definitely end it here. Yeah. So let's see here. Casual conversation. Yeah, that question is you would have to actually look into that, but Chichimeca, yeah, it's definitely a Uro Aztecan. Actually, let me put your okay. So the Chichimecas, yeah, definitely. Even the term Chichimeca is definitely Uro Aztecan. So, um, but yeah, there's a lot of people who were considered Chichimeca. Usually, the you would have to look into that whole history there. But they definitely spoke the Udo Aztecan. They're part of that Udo Aztecan family right there. Um, so yeah, you'll be surprised. There's a lot of them out here. a lot of them, and we're all related and connected. You know, we may have different variations and everything, but very similar, very similar. And even forgot I was actually gonna play a video by Jan, and he goes into the whole Uru Aztecan family lineage. Um, yeah, let me actually see if I can actually pull that up. Um, let's see here. Let me see if I can actually pull that up here. That's if I can actually get this working. This get my sharing, because not too sure how it goes here. Let me just look into it, because it's a really good video by it's on Nawat, and I never actually tried this on just live streaming. So let's see. Let me see if I can find it. Udo Aztecian language history. Let me see. Hmm. Trying to see if I can find it. Shoot, I can't find it at this time. I was gonna play it, but I even forgot about that. Let's see. Shoot. Yeah, actually, I should even had it already. Yeah, I should have actually had it already set up. But I pretty much went over a lot of the summarized the history of it. Jan actually does a really good job. He goes into a lot of the details. I just kind of summarized them. of of the Udo Aztecian family lineage. You'll find it from California, New Mexico, Utah, um, throughout the Southwest. Um, the Udo Aztecian family lineage from the United States all the way throughout Mexico to even Central America. And that's just a summary of it. And now there's a lot of details to all that, so um, you can actually look it up. There's actually a video on, you just type up on YouTube the Udo Aztecian languages and history, and you'll find a lot of information there. Good information. But I'm actually doing this video based on an article that I came across, and it talks about, it's like, are you related to the Aztecs? And it's really interesting because it makes the case of the Udo Aztecian family lineage and its connections with Mesoamerica, from the United States to Mesoamerica. And there's a lot of connections between the Southwest and Mesoamerica. But just think about it. They're neighbors. What do you think? People are going to travel, right? There's definitely ancestral relations and genetic ties and cultural ties, and there's so much of it. And I'll actually make a video maybe next time on more of the connections of the Southwest with Mesoamerica. But the Uru Aztecian family language lineage is one of them. That's, in the article was pretty good because it says wherever there's a language connection, there's most likely a high probability that there's also genetic connections as well, or where it's basically where the people speak. It's like definitely they're going to have relations with each other. They're going to be connected, right? There's going to be, you know, in a sense, lineages. Blood lineages are, people reproduce, just think about it, that wherever they speak, they travel and all that. That's just part of human evolution right there. That's basic anthropology right there. Many people don't even understand that. They think natives live on some island, right? Like, oh, they're just some isolated tribe and have no relations with nobody else around them. That's just nonsense. It's just um, out here in the Southwest in Mexico, many people traveled, and we just think of tribes as being some closed up unit. And there's people. Sometimes people form tribes. They merge. Like I said, people can have a common origin, right? And then somehow people leave that tribe and go and form other tribes, or they merge with other peoples, other tribes, and it's just even to this very day, like what we have, people traveling in the cities, and out here in Los Angeles, you got like Chicanos out here, you got Central Americans coming over here, you got Mayans, you got natives here, I mean, people live next to each other. They end up reproducing with each other. They end up speaking, almost the same language, just being influenced by each other and all that stuff. So even like around me, I have people who are from Oaxaca, and they speak their Zapotec, language and everything. And I mean, it's just so much awareness that Chicanos need to, like just even think, even around them, like how many natives and brown people are all around you in your neighborhood. You step outside and you see a lot of brown folks everywhere. These are all natives, these are all indigenous people, and you're indigenous. Stop thinking of yourself as something else. Stop thinking of yourself as Latino and Hispanic. You are indigenous. Um, Even when you're out there speaking, say Spanish from Mexico, you're speaking some Nahuatl words as well, too. And you have that in your ancestry, your blood as well. And definitely. And we have ancestral ties to the United States. Just trace that Udo Aztecan family lineage. We're all related, you know. Anyways, I think I'm going to end it here. Anyways, a good discussion, good talk. Next video, check out. I'll be going into more evidence of connections of Mesoamerican Mexican culture and the Southwest and United States and everything. So there's so much evidence and connections there. But anyways, I guess I'm gonna end it here. And if you guys get a chance, go check out my Rumble. I have a link below. I have new videos there, so go check them out. And hit me up on Instagram if you want to send me a message. You want sources on this whole Udo Aztecan family history. I'll send you a lot of sources. And also join my Twitter. It's really going good right now. It's on fire, actually. Twitter, we have a lot of people exposing a lot of stuff, and I'm actually one of my tweets went viral. It's actually rising right now. It's like 5,000 people actually. Just one little tweet, they're all like, it's gone viral, and I'm exposing stuff. And I actually had a recent what's called a Twitter Space. Twitter Space is like kind of like a chat where you join, and you just go create a Twitter account and click on my link and add me, and then go down to my profile, scroll all the way down, and you're gonna see like the last Twitter Space chat that I had, and it was like around 4 hours. The first hour, I just go into the topic, and then others joined me, and there was this guy who was really knowledgeable, had lots of good info, and we're just going back and forth, exchanging. And as you hear the conversation, it's just lots of good information, gems in there. So sometimes I have to even dialogue with other like-minded people, or even like stuff that it just comes out. It's like, okay, it's just dialoguing with people. It's like, more information comes out. So it's almost like philosophy, like Socrates would dialogue with people as he would go down and seeking, like, the truth, and he would dialogue people, and his dialogues would reveal more and more truth, so is that's almost like philosophy. Actually, that is philosophy. But yeah, that it was a good discussion. It went like for 4 hours, and man, it got deep, really deep. So go check it out. Definitely, and join me on Twitter Space, and keep an eye out on when I actually do my Twitter Spaces. I'll definitely be sending my links out when I create my Twitter Space, and so just keep an eye out on that. And maybe you can join me as well. You can either listen in or even join me in the conversation. And it's not like YouTube where you come on video and people see you. If you're actually shy, or, about your image or whatever, or some people just don't like being on video, so you can actually just be on it. It's like audio. That's what it is, an audio chat. So um, definitely just dropping knowledge, and I'll be having more of those Twitter Space chats, uncensored, conscious chats. Man, it gets deep. um, Anyways, yeah, if you get a chance, casual conversation, create a Twitter account. Oh man, it's growing. It's growing big right now. It's like it's a lot of us now. Like we're just dropping knowledge right there, and definitely join us in the conversations. Um, Anyways, well, I'm gonna end it here. It was nice talking to everyone here, especially you. Casual conversation, and to people out here listening to my video. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment some positive comments, and share share this information. Anyways, I'm gonna leave it here, and remember, don't be woke, be conscious. All right, see you later.